The morning sun had barely risen above the quiet streets when 40-year-old Rowan Mercer stood outside an abandoned roadside diner with a ring of rusty keys trembling in his hand. Just 3 months earlier, he had walked out of one of the country's largest restaurant corporations carrying a cardboard box after being fired without mercy. He had lost his executive career, his savings had almost disappeared, and every job application had been rejected. The only thing he still refused to lose was hope for his 8-year-old daughter, Hazel, whose smile had become the only reason he kept getting up every morning. As Rowan unlocked the cracked glass door of the forgotten diner, he had no idea that this worn-out building would become the place where fate would lead him back to the very CEO who had destroyed his career, and where both of their lives would change forever. Before we continue this emotional journey, if you believe kindness always comes back, that people deserve second chances, and that family is worth fighting for, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire so you never miss another inspiring story. The old building had been empty for nearly 6 years. Dust floated through the bright morning light pouring in from the large front windows. The booths were torn, the kitchen smelled of rust and old grease, and weeds had pushed their way through cracks in the parking lot. Most people saw a building ready for demolition. Rowan saw the first chance he had been given in months. After selling nearly everything he owned except his late wife's wedding ring and a few family photographs, he had purchased the property for less than the price of a used car. It was a terrifying gamble, but he believed that serving honest meals with genuine kindness could succeed where expensive business strategies had failed. Every day began before sunrise. Rowan cleaned floors, repaired broken chairs, painted faded walls, and rebuilt kitchen equipment with his own hands. Hazel spent her summer vacation helping by wiping tables, watering flowers outside, and drawing cheerful pictures that Rowan proudly taped onto the freshly painted walls. Customers had not yet arrived, but laughter had already returned to the building. The diner slowly transformed into something warm and welcoming. People driving past noticed fresh flowers in the windows and a father and daughter smiling while working together. Curiosity began replacing indifference. Money remained painfully tight. Rowan skipped meals so Hazel could enjoy healthy breakfasts before helping around the diner. Utility bills piled up on the kitchen counter beside unpaid loan notices. Every evening he carefully counted every dollar, hoping tomorrow would be just a little better. Despite the pressure, he never allowed fear to steal his kindness. When an elderly traveler forgot his wallet, Rowan served breakfast anyway. When construction workers stopped by after long shifts, Rowan quietly added extra fries without charging them. Word spread that someone at the old diner still believed customers mattered more than profits. Months earlier, Rowan had worked as regional operations director for an enormous restaurant company led by a powerful CEO named Celeste Hawthorne. She had earned a reputation for demanding perfection, rewarding profits above everything else, and making decisions without emotion. Rowan had repeatedly warned company leaders that cutting employee hours, lowering food quality, and ignoring customer satisfaction would eventually destroy the brand's reputation. His reports had been dismissed. During one executive meeting, Rowan openly defended the hard-working staff who were being blamed for declining sales. Instead of listening, Celeste viewed his honesty as defiance. Before the day ended, security escorted him from headquarters while shocked co-workers watched in silence. Losing the job had nearly broken him. After his wife had passed away years earlier following a sudden illness, Rowan had promised himself that Hazel would never feel abandoned. Being fired threatened that promise. There were evenings when he sat alone after Hazel had fallen asleep, staring at rejection emails and wondering whether he had failed as both a father and a provider. Yet every morning Hazel greeted him with the same bright smile and innocent confidence that somehow reminded him he was still enough. The diner officially opened on a clear spring morning beneath blue skies. Instead of flashy advertisements, Rowan simply placed a handwritten sign outside that read, "Fresh meals. Fair prices. Everyone welcome." The first customers were neighbors curious about the reopening. They quickly noticed the spotless dining room, homemade recipes, and genuine warmth. Families returned. Truck drivers recommended the diner to coworkers. Teachers brought students after school events. Farmers stopped by before heading home. The little diner gradually became the heart of the community. One sunny afternoon, nearly a year after opening, several luxury vehicles unexpectedly pulled into the parking lot. Their polished black paint reflected the bright daylight as sharply dressed executives stepped outside. Rowan barely looked up from preparing sandwiches until he noticed the final passenger. His hands froze. Walking toward the entrance was Celeste Hawthorne. Time seemed to slow as memories rushed back. The humiliation of losing his career, the sleepless nights, the unpaid bills, and the uncertainty all returned in an instant. Yet instead of anger, Rowan simply continued serving customers with calm professionalism. He refused to let his past define the man he had become. Celeste had not planned to visit. Her company had recently launched an expensive campaign to study successful independent restaurants after profits continued falling nationwide. Industry analysts had repeatedly mentioned one small diner attracting remarkable customer loyalty despite having almost no advertising budget. Curious and skeptical, she decided to see it herself. As she entered, something immediately felt different. Families laughed together. Elderly regulars greeted employees by name. Children proudly showed drawings hanging on the walls. Workers smiled naturally rather than forcing polite expressions. There was no expensive decoration, yet the room felt more valuable than many luxury restaurants she had built. Only then did she recognize Rowan. Shock filled her face. She had expected an unemployed former executive, not the respected owner of a thriving local business surrounded by grateful customers. She quietly observed for nearly an hour. Rowan personally greeted every guest, remembered birthdays, carried meals to elderly visitors, and made time to encourage a nervous teenage employee serving tables on her first day. For the first time in many years, Celeste realized she had confused efficiency with leadership. She began reviewing Rowan's old reports that evening after returning to corporate headquarters. Every recommendation he had made about employee care, food quality, customer relationships, and community involvement had proven correct. The financial decisions she had defended so aggressively were now costing the company millions. She discovered several executives had hidden important information from her while placing blame on Rowan to protect themselves. The discovery weighed heavily on her conscience. Pride had once convinced her she never made mistakes. Now she understood that one decision made from arrogance had nearly destroyed an innocent family's future. A week later, she returned to the diner alone. This time she looked less like a powerful executive and more like someone carrying invisible regret. She quietly watched Hazel helping an elderly customer carry a pie to his table before returning to finish homework in a corner booth. Rowan smiled with unmistakable pride. It reminded Celeste of her own childhood, when her parents had owned a small neighborhood cafe where kindness mattered more than quarterly profits. Somewhere during her rise to success, she had forgotten those simple lessons. She sincerely apologized for everything that had happened. Rowan listened without bitterness. The pain had shaped him, but it had not hardened his heart. He admitted losing his career had been devastating, yet if it had never happened, he would never have built the diner, never discovered how much the community needed it, and never realized success could be measured by grateful smiles instead of impressive titles. Inspired by what she had witnessed, Celeste began transforming her company from the inside. Employee wellness programs returned. Local suppliers were welcomed back. Managers received leadership training focused on compassion rather than fear. Customer satisfaction steadily improved, and so did employee morale. The turnaround became one of the industry's most inspiring business stories. Meanwhile, Rowan's diner continued growing naturally. Instead of opening dozens of locations, he chose to protect the atmosphere people loved. Community fundraisers filled weekends. Free holiday meals became an annual tradition. Students found part-time jobs where they were treated with respect. Elderly neighbors discovered a place where someone always remembered their names. One bright summer afternoon, local reporters gathered outside the diner after hearing about the remarkable partnership forming between Rowan and Celeste's company. Cameras captured the restored building shining beneath clear blue skies, surrounded by blooming flowers planted by neighborhood volunteers. As Rowan stood beside Hazel, he realized life had quietly given him something far greater than the career he had once mourned. The greatest victories rarely arrive wearing expensive suits. Sometimes they appear disguised as heartbreak, leading us toward a future we never imagined possible. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that forgiveness, perseverance, and kindness can change lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to Single Dad Empire for more emotional stories that inspire hope. Special request: before this story ends, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and answer this question: do you believe one act of kindness can completely change someone's life? As the evening approached, the last customers waved goodbye while Hazel helped Rowan flip the sign on the door from open to closed. They stood together outside the little diner watching families drive home with full hearts and full stomachs. Rowan looked at the building that everyone else had once called worthless and quietly smiled. Losing everything had not been the end of his story. It had simply been the beginning of the life he was always meant to build. And under the warm daylight that had welcomed every new beginning, one single father proved that when courage is stronger than disappointment and kindness is greater than pride, even the smallest place can become the brightest light in someone's world.